Here's your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, the franchise guide.
So what advice, person just starting out, looking to, just they know the corporate life isn't for them, what advice would you guys give someone in that transition? A couple pieces of advice, and both of you can tackle this one, but what's kind of a good starting point? You've done this before. What good, piece of advice would you give to that person?
Sure. Yeah, I don't mind. I'll go first. I think the number one piece of advice is understanding that, but when you're looking to jump into franchising, you're really looking to find, a business in a box with a proven system. And it's not about rewriting, your own company or coming up with your own ideas. That's why you're doing this. So kind of being relaxed in the fact that you are going to be given something that you just have to implement. And I think a lot of times when people are thinking about entrepreneurship, they are thinking, oh, I have to come up with all these ideas and it's going to be really difficult. And how will I transition from the JOB into the entrepreneurial world? And when you're looking at a system like Jungle, that's the comfortability, the part that you're going to not have to worry about is that here it is, here's how you work it. And I think it takes that fear away a lot. So that would be my advice to listen to the business.
Beat that one, Zach.
Yeah, let's see, where have I made this mistake?
How much time do you have?
That's another show. That's the next show. No, I'm kidding.
That's a series. I have a couple points, I think. So the first is a quote by Peter Drucker: "What gets measured gets managed." And so having an operating system of how you're going to manage the business is really overlooked. I talked to I don't know how many local formal calls I have had. There was a gentleman in Kansas City that I remember I talked to for a brand. And when I got on there, they weren't having a weekly meeting. They had no idea what the numbers were. They hadn't logged into their social media. They hadn't even logged into any of the referral partnership stuff that we'd had both for that brand. And we had some of those things in place. And what I recognized is not only do we have to have them in place, but we really got to build that into the culture. And so we bought EOS or Traction is that you can read the book, but you really have to start that process and stay with it. So that way you have the right people in the right seats on the bus. You're managing and monitoring the KPIs that move the business forward. That is something that's really missed. And that applies for any business out there is what operating system are you using to be effective, to move the needle, how you're performing. I think that's a big one. The second, it's going to be harder than you think, but more rewarding than you think. And so sales is what solves the problem most of the time.
Sure.
If you're not doing well, typically the first thing they go to is, well, how many leads or what's our revenue? And so focusing on driving revenue allows you to have the luxury of not having to be operationally excellent. Being operationally excellent and having no revenue doesn't really matter. And so you have to be focused on driving sales. And I don't care what business it is, you are going to have to be a marketer and salesman. That's just a part of being an entrepreneur. And no matter how much the franchisor says they have it dialed in, that's still a part of your business. That'll be a part of your DNA. You have to be able to get out there, live your brand, and constantly be evolving to the changing times. And I think the third is the people are by far the most important. And people are going to make mistakes, but making sure that, again, people are helping you build that business and have a clear roadmap of what they're supposed to be doing and have some freedom to be up there, help get some loans.
Right. Love that. No, that's awesome. It's funny when you mentioned sales. We just interviewed David Reciano from Source Soap. He was a Shark Tank deal here in my local town a couple months ago. Did a deal with Mark Cuban, and that was part of the conversation. Is sales cures it all. Sales will increase. We can start figuring out where the breaks are and things like that. But ultimately, we want to get the product into the community. We want people using it. We want these ambassadors, these people kind of promoting it. And that was part of the interview, so it's funny you mentioned that. We just had this conversation. And for anyone listening in, you had mentioned EOS. So that's the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And the book is Traction by Gino Wickman. It's a book we talk about quite a bit. It's funny. I've been an entrepreneur for 25 years. Went to grad school, did all that kind of stuff. And it's like, that book should be taught in school. It should almost replace a business class because there really isn't an operating system. As we talked about, it's kind of like, all right, I need to do marketing. I need to do certain things, but how do you follow up? What are the KPIs? And then figuring out, okay, I have to track this on Fridays, but I'm meeting with my manager right afterwards once a week to review everything in person. And I think that's the missing piece. It's a way to, it's kind of like a spokes of a wheel. They all have to be balanced or you're not going anywhere on that bike. So it's really figuring out, okay, employees and finances and things like that.
I got one to add for you because you just brought this. You just talked about money. It's I call it "Don't pee in the pool."
Okay.
Don't pee in the pool. So one of the best conferences I've ever been to, Giuseppe, was the Customer Service Summit by John DeJulius. So, John, if you hear this, you should come on this podcast. But
Yeah.
so he tells a story, and he's a business owner. He tells a story about him and his kids went to Disney, and his kid was 5 or 6 and had to go to the bathroom. And we'll just pee in the pool. Bathroom in the pool. Also, the kid gets out of the pool, pulls down his pants, and pees into the pool. And so the lesson is, did he do what I told him to?
Right.
And the answer is, well, he did. And so I think even as a franchisor, a business owner, are you clearly giving the expectations of what the desired outcome is and how to do that? And so don't pee in the pool is something that we always talked about is, are you peeing in the pool right now? Or are you saying, go do this, I did it, and that's not what you wanted. And so as business owners, I think sometimes we have in our heads how we want things to be done.
Right.
You don't clearly articulate what you're expecting or how to do those things. Well, they're not going to be what you're not going to get the outcome you desire. Don't pee in the pool.
I was going to add something that was not what I was thinking is that, it's another unique, I think, with Jungle Driving is our team, internally, we have really, part of the reason why I'm here is because of the team that Zach has created. And, if I'm going to leave what I was leaving, which, I really enjoyed what I was doing, had a great team there. It had to be for something special. And every person on our team, just when you mentioned about EOS, it reminds me that I don't have to worry because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And not only that, I know everyone else on the team is doing what they're supposed to be doing. And we are solidifying that every week. And we're all coming together to push the boulder up the hill. And I think that's missing in a lot of franchise systems is the care to be on one mission, not only for our franchisees, but for us internally to be the best at what we're doing. And it's very rare. And we definitely have that here.
Love that. Yeah, the culture is big and feedback. Everyone has to be on the same page, ask for, give us your feedback. Just because we get feedback from the franchisee doesn't mean you're going to completely change or take every piece of feedback, but at least incorporate that. Maybe some additional trainings, maybe some follow-ups, maybe more of an in-person training, which is something we talked about earlier with Brand SprayNet, where they actually say, okay, you're learning all this great stuff, have at it. Now it's like, all right, let's actually come out with you and train you right on the job site. Let's do some work together. Let's generate some revenue together. And I think those are the differentiators because you get overwhelmed. It's like going to a Tony Robbins seminar, you're getting pumped up, on a Sunday it's over, Monday, you're like, all right, what the hell do I even do now? So I like that. I like that approach. I think that's the best approach. Some of the, the big ideas out there were developed from franchisees. The fillet of fish I just found out from McDonald's, the $5 foot long, amongst others. So I really,
the Big Mac.
The Big Mac too was oh no, I didn't know that. I didn't know about the Big Mac. The fillet of fish I just found out.
Ready to take the wheel and explore franchise freedom with Jungle Driving School? Visit ggthefranchiseguide.com to connect with Giuseppe and learn more.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want to learn how to make the transition from corporate to owning your franchise, join Giuseppe on the next episode. You can also follow on all social media platforms and achieve financial and time freedom today.